Hello and welcome to Follow Everton. So it's just me at the moment going solo, responding to the match that some of you guys probably seen. It's to be able to watch this friendly. We had to stream in via the Everton website. So we're at the SALFORD ground. I don't know the name of it now. I had it written down in my notes and now I've forgotten the name of the stadium, but we were there. It was a small arena, but we had about 4,000 people attend. I think it was basically maxed out for their stadium. A little bit near Manchester in Salford. A lot of Evertonians were down there for the match. You could certainly hear them in the coverage. In terms of the quality of the match, and we'll go over that here shortly, but why don't we first bring up the lineup and who was available today? So in terms of the starting lineup, we had a relatively strong lineup, but we also know, relative to who was here. So we didn't have Jared Branthwaite attending today. I think probably still recovering from his time in the Euros and getting him back up to fitness. Illiman and Dye wasn't in the squad today. Not really sure what happened there. We didn't hear anything about Nathan Patterson either. Vitaly Mikulenko was also absent, and I think the Pickford similarly probably being rested up, and I think there was one more of the main squad that wasn't in attendance today in Idrissa Gana Gueye. So from those that were available, we had Coleman, who kicked off at right back. We had a pretty bare bones centre half pairing. Tarkovsky also had a glute strain or something to that effect a little while ago, so I think probably resting him up as well. Ashley Young was slotted into left back, and then it was at the rare moment we actually had a 4-4-2. So what was interesting, and what Jacko was saying too, he may not have been at the Euros, but I think if I remember correctly, that they were he wasn't with the squad for as long a period as some of the other players who weren't kind of doing international friendly. So it wasn't at the Euros per se, but I think he was away for a little bit there. Now, in terms of the how we set up, it was a 4-4-2. So it was kind of interesting seeing these rare moments with Beto and Calvert-Lewin playing together. It still wasn't really that comfortable for him. We had quite a interesting looking bench. And when I say interesting, a lot of the names we don't get to see too much of. Normally in the regular season, they're not going to be out on the pitch that often, except for the likes of Yusuf Chimiti. Almost everyone else on that bench we haven't seen a whole lot of. So the first 20 minutes or so was a really uninteresting, scrappy game. Salford were quite competitive, so we have to give them credit there. But was it really up to Premier League standard? No, not at all. In terms of us making an impact at the beginning, we weren't really breaking through the lines that often. A lot of our play was direct, trying to go down through the middle with one-touch passing, and Beto was looking better than expected there, but a lot of the goal-scoring chances happened a little bit later on. So defensively, though, although if this was at a Premier League level, I think we would have gotten tested a lot more. There wasn't a whole lot for Holgate, Keane, Coleman and Young to do for the most part. There was one crossing opportunity by the ex-Everton player. Let me get his name back up quickly. Luke Garbett had a really good cross from their left side, and Ashley Young was caught napping, and very fortunate for them not to go a goal up early. But at the same time, right around that 20-minute mark when the game was picking up, that Garbett cross came in, and what we also noticed was we were starting to get a whole lot of opportunities. We had Doucouré was running down the left off the left side, tucked into his right, and really shanked a ball when he was trying to go for the top right corner. There was, McNeil also was able to knock the ball. So that was at 12 minutes, sorry. McNeil on the break knocked it down the right channel to DCL. He cut in on his left side from the right channel, and it's kind of going across goal and gets a lot of contact from the centre half from Salford. And it was one of those that I think if in a more professional match rather than a friendly, that should be called a penalty every day of the week. But the referee was letting a lot of stuff go, except for the rare moment that Coleman made a tackle and they gave a really harsh free kick against him. But it was a very open game, quite physical and a little bit, I mean, granted, that's what you kind of want that rather than too many free kicks, but occasionally they just weren't making the calls that they should have. So in this case, DCL didn't get the penalty, but a little bit later on in that first half, he was basically one-on-one with the keeper, did a little shimmy move to try and free up some space, opened up his body to go to the bottom left-hand corner and shanked it out of bounds. So that was pretty out of play. That was quite poor from him. But outside of that, I didn't have anyone to talk back to, so I'm going to use my phone here for some of the notes that I had. There was some good one-touch play from Doucouré. I thought it was right around half-time after these goal-scoring opportunities, it really started to get quite slow and uninteresting again. So we had pockets of a really boring, uninteresting match with little windows with goal-scoring opportunities for both sides. We also noticed right around that half-time, we're getting really lazy with trying to do long balls and offsides. And I think everyone, including the commentators, were really thankful for halftime to be over because not a whole lot happened. So what we then went to right around halftime, we had a whole lot of substitutions to come in. So we had Eli Campbell, I think was his name, came in at left back for an Ashley Young that was quite underwhelming. Yusuf Chamiti came on for Beto at halftime. Roman Dixon came on for Coleman. And what it was again really obvious was the pace of Roman Dixon really stood out to me. And the real question is, well, what does he do with it? Well, what does he do with that pace? Can he link up the play with Jack Harrison? They don't seem to know how to play it well together at the moment, but he can do some blistering runs and break through lines, which is pretty exciting. Yeah, and to Paul's point here, I think Dixon was quite exciting. It's now a matter of how do we actually have him have effective link-up play, because you can have the likes of a Jeremy Doku at Man City who can run past players as a winger, but sometimes if you don't have players to work with, they can just shut down. At the Premier League level, someone's going to be pacey enough to take him on, but a really exciting and promising player I'm seeing in Dixon over the last few friendlies. So the first half, it ended. We talked about Dixon coming on. There was the goal that happened for Everton was a set play. It was taken by James Garner. There was a foul that was brought up by the energetic Yusuf Chamiti, who broke through the lines, and I think one of the Salford players just had to take him out before he went into the penalty box. And what ended up happening, it was on the left-hand side of the 18-yard box, maybe about 20 out, and it was perfectly set up for James Garner. The wall was really oddly set up for them. They had just substituted in the new keeper at halftime as well. They had 5 in the wall. 4 were nicely set up together to cover the right-hand side to the keeper's right, and the fifth player that was most on the inside was about a body length away from the rest of the wall. James Garner then goes just over the head of that 5th player, and the keeper did not really see it for whatever reason and wasn't able to cover his side of the goal, and it was tucked in nicely. So again, was it the perfect free kick? Hey, look, it was on target with some pace, and he took advantage of an awkward wall setup. So it was I'd like to say, pretty well done there by James Garner for that goal. And it was brought forward by the fact that Yusuf Chamiti was breaking through lines and making League Two players uncomfortable. But there were some positives right around there, and the game certainly opened up at this point. We had the second we got a goal ahead, it became a lot more counter-attacking with some interesting play. Every time Salford would come forward, we would have these driving runs going the opposite way. The one that really stood out to me was a classic. We have a 4-player overload after there was a corner kick where I believe the player from Salford took a strike. Jal Virginia covered and saw it late, not tipped it out for a corner. They did a short corner on their on Everton's left side, really poorly handled by them, and they just caused a turnover. Doucouré nicked it off, and they do it. And Everton have 4 players running forward, so we have an overload by about 2 players against Salford. And there's about a 60-yard run from Jack Harrison running parallel with Doucouré to receive the ball. Dukes just overhits it, and it goes out for a goal kick. And it was one of these like classic, we do all the right stuff and we can't do a basic pass to get the ball in the net, So there was a lot of opportunities like that. But Salford did come back into it. There was another set of substitutions, which we'll go to next, where we had Holgate and Keane came off, and then you basically have a defensive back 4 of Reece Welsh and Tyler and Yango as the 2 centre halves. Campbell on the left, Dixon on the right. Campbell for a while was looking quite confident, but the goal that ended up happening was quite a calamitous situation, that first one. So the cross came in, and what you noticed pretty quickly was Tyler and Yango, who's mostly he's been moved to a centre half position to test out how he plays in that role, was really he struggled in this appearance. He let the short and coming from me, I can short player myself, I know this, but Dixon was taking on the striker, who was much taller than him, for that set play, and it hits the bar, and then we have Campbell trying to get the ball off the line as it's going from post to post, and he accidentally, instead of clearing it, knocks it back into his own net for an own goal. So it was quite an awkward moment for Campbell for his first own goal. But these things happen, and I think that really hit his confidence, and he was struggling for the rest of the match there. But it was really interesting. They didn't seem to be that dangerous for much of the match, but really the second we started to go into, let's call it our third selection, not the Everton starting centre-half pairing, which we'd expect for Jared Branthwaite and James Tarkowski, not the backup pair that we are looking to move on with Holgate and Keane, but the reserves starting centre-half pairing definitely had some work to do. And I think we'll have to learn from it. But honestly, that this is a good opportunity for us to see how these different players went. And I think generally speaking, Campbell did have some good runs on that left side and across the ball, did some effective crosses. Campbell actually had a really good cross. Cable scored here. So Campbell did a really, really good cross, and Jack Harrison came in late into the box and nearly scored. Would have been an excellent highlight reel goal, but it went to no avail. So, yeah, to Peter Duggan's point, why are they moving players to centre back? It seems like that's been a common thing. We have CDMs that become fullback, either fullbacks or centre halves, and the real question is, what is the right position? Maybe they're thinking, if we lack centre half options, we're trying to move on Holgate and Keane, and for the Everton organisation, they don't see Onyango in that role permanently as a midfielder, and that's not the image that Kevin Thelwell wants or Dyche wants for that position. Maybe they're trying to see if they can resort him, but he didn't look that confident today. But maybe that was just a quick snapshot that isn't representative. But yeah, Onyango definitely struggled. Tyra came in for Virginia, and around I think it was the 60-minute mark, but that's where the majority of our subs came on. Armstrong went on the right-hand side. His first touch in professional football. He could have actually had a shot on goal that had a good chance of going in. He kind of got in his own head about it and tried to pass it on to, I think it was Okoronkwo, who played on the left wing. At moments, Okoronkwo looked dangerous, but it was very kind of awkward a lot of the time. But he did have one good strike on goal later in the match, and it was a foot save from the keeper. He went to the lower bottom left-hand side corner and saved by their keeper. So it was a good foot save there. Metcalf was in the middle there. He wasn't a big physical presence, but he did what he needed to do. Armstrong, as I mentioned, was a lot of energy, but I think we'll get to see him a few more times in the friendlies. But he wasn't would come in and out of the game as expected, as wingers often do. But he did have a good save off the line. There was a goal or a shot near the end that beat Tyra, but Armstrong was playing last man and cleared it off. So I think credit there. So yeah, I think that's probably some of the main highlights. I thought it was interesting seeing Salford play. I've never figured out that their shirt sponsor is Fireball Whiskey. Half of their shirts had sponsors on them, half didn't. But what was also interesting, 2 of the players that started for them today were not actually officially on their books, I think. So they didn't actually announce their names in the starting lineup. So they just called them like number 7 and number 28, which I thought was quite comical. But if they're giving people a trial run, but they're not in the organization, I guess that's how they do it. From what I could tell, the stake or the logos, nothing fell off today. They still do look quite nice in the blue. Let's see what else really stood out. And the final goal, which was right about 2 minutes from the end there, was a clever through ball. But the Everton had too high a line. Reece Walsh seemed flat-footed and was not able to catch up to the Salford striker, who, by effectively timing his run, comes on to Tyra's left-hand side, and Tyra goes to ground trying to block the shot. The striker knocks it to his right and is able to knock it down onto the at ground level and slot it in. Mr. Blue Skies is bringing up some other moments for the match. I think Tim Eric-Bunham stood out to me a whole lot more in the last match than this one. It may have been that there was just a whole lot of counterattacking and dynamic play and turnovers, and it just got so kind of messy that he was kind of stuck in the fray of a lot of possession and turnovers. But I like Eric Bunham. I like how he is box to box. He's able to break through lines pretty comfortably, and I think that was something to note from these young players that we don't get to see a whole lot of. I think Armstrong shows that kind of potential. Dixon certainly shows that potential. Chimiti did a whole bunch of that, breaking through lines. Mope was better than I expected today, but there was quite a comical moment actually with Mope. So he was playing a lot of a false 9, imitating what Beto was doing in the first half, where he'd receive the ball, do a one-touch pass, and then wait for that like 3 or 4 players to kind of overload and start charging up the field. What I did notice for Mope, though, Armstrong, I think, had come through on the right-hand side. No, sorry, it was Dixon, had blown through on the right-hand side and was tucking in to give the ball to Mope. Mope is about to receive it, and who was it? Yusuf Chimiti actually accidentally bumps into him as he's receiving the ball and causes a turnover, which could have easily been like a one-on-one for the keeper. So I think that was quite comical, but it's this moment that I think Mope is doing better than we expected he would at the moment, because we're not just pushing him as a single target man. If we have better opposition, I'm sure, like at a Premier League level, would Mope have the space to look more dangerous, because we are talking about League 2 opposition. And as Peter Duggan's saying here in the comments, what's the point? What have we got here? So I don't like us playing lower league opposition in preseason. How are the players supposed to improve with that serious challenge? Forget the result. It's the result isn't really the big issue here. It's how for us as fans watching, it's a good opportunity to get to see some of these youth players. We don't get to see much of them integrating into the squad. It's usually behind closed doors at Finch Farm and simulation. So we got to see how that all integrate together. But if we're not going all too serious, are we going to be a little bit too flat-footed and don't have that attacking vigor, that little touch of, are you on the ball? Are you truly match fit come the first game of the season against Brighton? So it's a good point, Peter. All I can say is, well, we're only playing Roma there at the end, and everyone else is Championship or below. We have Coventry coming up. I think it was Preston North End as well, and then Roma just before the end there. So all I know is that we do not have Premier League practice matches, but we better hope to be right on the ball, and we'll see what happens there. So outside of that, there's not too much really to go over. It was an interesting match in moments. I'm sure the highlight reel will be better than watching it live. Certainly was. I think there was probably about 20 minutes of attention there. But what I really like to see is we've been talking about who we've been picking up squad-wise. We have Illiman and Dye, Tim Eric Brunham, both capable of breaking through lines. Dixon was doing a lot of that, and Shemiti is really, I think, we do not, in my view anyway, everyone on the channel has their own opinion, but I don't think either selling or learning out Yusuf Shemiti is a good idea. I think he's showing a lot of energy and determination, and if DCL stays, okay, great. He's a impact bench player, or maybe he goes as a pair, but he's looking the most dominant of the three strikers right now for us. So outside of that, if anyone has any questions in the comments about the match, feel free to add that in there. But for me, I think I'm gonna have another show here in a little bit. I'm gonna put some statistics together because we have signed Jasper Lindstrom, the Dane, and he's had his official wearing the Everton kit, and the Everton TV crowd have asked him what's your favorite thing about Everton? What do you want to what brought you here? And other than, well, I got a paycheck and I'm happy to get a job to keep employed, I'm sure he's excited to join the squad, but it was a little bit too early for him to join on. And then Jake O'Brien is sounding like that's going to be a done deal pending personal terms and a medical at Finch Farm tomorrow. So I'm going to cover that here in a little over an hour and go into that in a little bit more detail. But I think promising in certain respects, but it's also showing right now that we have defensive frailties if we have any injuries. So if we have Mikalenko not coming back in full fitness, Jared Branthwaite gets sold or in any way is injured, or Tarky does, I think we have gaps in the back that we have to be very careful on, because I don't and Blue Skies, I'm not too sure. I didn't hear anything on it. I know Illiman and Dye wasn't in the lineup, or Patterson. I don't think there's been any injury conversations. Maybe it was solely giving different players a run out and there was a squad max. They did have a Q&A session with Illiman and Dye in the halftime content. So he was wearing the yellow Castori shirt, sitting on a chair outside with the sun behind him, and he'd be answering different fan questions. And I think the one that stood out to me was what is his goal, or like what type of goal does he want to have? And he said he wants to score at the Merseyside derby. You know, could be worse. You could say you want to score against Salford and never score again. So I think at least positive that Ndiaye seems to have he seems very calm and a good speaker. So I think that was kind of nice. But in terms of where they were today, no idea. I haven't heard anything on it. And especially when it comes to friendlies, that's not that every player has to play in that match. There's probably so much other fitness and simulated club games going on. This isn't the only way to give them practice. It's just our rare opportunity to get to see them play. So I think that's it for now, everyone. But keep an eye out. I'll be back in about a little over an hour, I think an hour and a half, planning to go live to talk about the official signing of Jasper Lindstrom and the likely signing, but pending personal terms for Jake O'Brien. So until next time, up the Toffees.